The Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Islamic Republic of Iran, Mr. Ahmed Shaheed, to report to the committee. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Elements of the Iranian government have made attempts to address international concerns about the human rights situation in the Islamic Republic of Iran. This includes amendments to the Islamic Penal and Criminal Procedure Codes, the proposal of a Charter of Citizens' Rights last September, and the recent ratification of an additional ILO convention. Despite these efforts, the situation, however, remains deeply disturbing. Fundamental human rights continue to be violated by laws and practices previously identified by UN human rights mechanisms, and recent developments further aggravate this situation. Of particular alarm is a surge in executions this past year. At least 852 individuals have been executed since June of last year. Some 799 of these individuals were executed since I addressed the Assembly Committee last year, including 8 juveniles. The majority of these executions continue to be for alleged crimes that do not meet international standards of most serious, including political crimes, drug possession, and corruption. In May and June this year, for example, a man was reportedly executed for allegedly sending a donation to a foreign news outlet, and another was reportedly executed for alleged economic crimes, including fraud. Compounding this alarm are recurring allegations of severe malfunctions in the administration of justice. This weekend, many of us learned of the execution of Ms. Rehana Jabari, a young woman who was convicted of murdering a man she claimed was attempting to sexually assault her. The execution was carried out despite repeated and clear calls by the international community for a stay of execution in response to credible allegations of due process irregularities. I continue to receive frequent and alarming reports about the use of prolonged solitary confinement, mock executions, threats of rape, severe beatings, suspension, electroshock, and burnings to solicit confessions from detainees, indicating the widespread and systematic use of such practices. Individuals also continue to report that information obtained under these conditions is used as evidence against them during trial. The resumption of proceedings to adopt the formal attorneyship bill that appears to undermine the independence of lawyers in Iran has reignited additional concerns. The bill establishes a board consisting of representatives from the executive and judicial branches that would have authority to issue, suspend, and revoke attorneys' licenses, and would subject bar association candidates for competency proceedings facilitated by government officials. Last weekend, Iranian Bar Association announced suspension of Ms. Nasrin Sotoudeh's legal license, reinforcing already serious concern about the organization's independence. Madam Chair, a few weeks ago, the High Commissioner for Human Rights reminded us that defense of even the most fundamental rights is still a dangerous activity in many countries. This still appears to characterize the situation facing human rights defenders in Iran, who continue to draw attention to defamation campaigns that often equate them with terrorists or label them with foreign agents, spies, or seditionists. Individuals continue to report the use of overly broad laws to arbitrarily criminalize their protected activities, and they continue to disclose the use of the judicial system to arbitrarily arrest, detain, and charge them with criminal offenses for such peaceful activities as drawing attention to gender inequality or advocating for improved wages and working conditions. Laws continue to restrict content that might offend government officials and religious figures, or that might undermine the government's definition of decency. Social media websites such as Facebook and Twitter remain illegal for non-government users, and hundreds of websites dedicated to the arts, social issues, and the news are blocked. In March, I reported that over 800 prisoners of conscience were detained in the country. Today, at least 35 journalists are detained in Iran. Another 36 journalists, bloggers, and filmmakers and authors have been arrested, summoned, or sentenced in connection with their journalistic activities or for simply expressing their opinion on social media websites since May of this year. At least 300 minority religious practitioners are also reportedly imprisoned in Iran. This includes 126 Baha'i, 49 Christians, 9 Sufi or Dervish Muslims, members of the Al-San faith, and of newer spiritual movements. At least 150 Sunni Muslims are currently detained for reportedly organizing religious meetings and activities, many of whom have been charged with serious security offenses. Religious minorities also continue to report the harassment of elementary school students through attacks on their faith in classrooms, the denial of university and post-secondary education. They also continue to report the systematic closure of their businesses, and Christian converts identified by their Muslim family names have been reportedly denied licenses or dismissed from their jobs after converting to or speaking about Christianity to co-workers. Madam Chair, laws, policies and practices that discriminate against Iranian women and girls continue to institutionalize their second-class status. The laws are incompatible with women's empowerment and undermine decades of advances made by women, including education. For example, the percentage of female students entering university has declined from 62% in 2008 to just 48.2% last year, following the introduction of gender rationing policies in 2012. Iran continues to have one of the lowest rates of female representation in the labor market globally. They are estimated to earn the lowest average incomes in Asia and Pacific, and the income gap between Iranian men and women is one of the highest in the world. Madam Chair, the spate of horrific acid attacks that took place in Isfahan last week are another reminder that there is much to be done to promote respect for women's rights in the country, including by respecting their right to be free from violence in both public and the private sphere. Some 66% of Iranian women have reportedly experienced domestic violence. Laws continue to require a woman wishing to leave the abusive situation to first prove that there is significant risk of bodily harm or threat to her life and safety, and require women seeking to obtain a divorce as a result of domestic violence to prove that the abuse was intolerable. In response to this information, the government communicated its consideration of efforts to legally define all forms of domestic violence. I look forward to observing these proceedings. Madam Chair, the sober reality of human rights in Iran, just enunciated, represents a powerful reminder that human rights reform must be a central aspect of the government's agenda and of any dialogue between the government and the global community. Iran has itself accepted the necessity of a number of key reforms during its Universal Periodic Review and during its reviews by UN treaty bodies. It is now vitally important for the future welfare of the Iranian people that the government work with the UN and in the implementation of the UPR recommendations, and that it use its upcoming review this week to make explicit commitments towards advancement of substantive human rights agenda in the country. As I made clear at the outset, if the government chooses to take this path, if it expresses its determination to strengthen the promotion and protection of human rights for all Iranians, it will find in me, and I'm sure in the human rights community, willing and determined partners of that path. Thank you.
I thank the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Islamic Republic of Iran for his presentation.